Gen Z stare.
Hi, welcome in. How are you guys doing? Sorry, I said how are you guys, not do you want to watch me shove my whole fist in my mouth? Okay, do you guys know what you want to drink? Right.
Hey, how are y'all doing today? Can I get us started off with anything to drink? Cool. I'm gonna give you guys a minute to process what I said and maybe give me an answer next time.
Hi, how are you today? Okay. What'd you want to do today? Are you slow?
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. You can support uncensored conversations via Cash App or buying your girl a coffee. I don't know if you guys have experienced this when you're out and about and you come across a younger Gen Z and you say something to them and it almost looks like they're a deer caught in headlights. Like they don't know what to say, they don't know how to respond. They just sit there and stare at you, and it's so awkward.
This is the Gen Z stare, as predicted in 2006 when the oldest Gen Z was 10 years old by Mike Judge in the movie Idiocracy. Here you go.
Hi, I was in an army experiment and I'm not feeling so well. I think it might have been the drugs they had me on. I've been hallucinating. My head is just killing me. My joints are all achy and is this a hospital or I don't even know where I am.
Please proceed to the diagnostic area on the right and have a healthy day.
Oh.
So that takes place in the year 2505. If you've never seen the movie, the premise is this guy did a sleep experiment for the army. He was supposed to be in hibernation for a year, but everything went wrong, so he ended up in hibernation for like 500 years. And in the future, everyone's just like alarmingly stupid. But everyone's talking about the Gen Z stare and how dumb it looks, and Gen Z's fighting back, well, actually, it's just because you're dumb. I'm not the dumb one. But just Gen Z to Gen Z, I just wanted to show you guys this completely accurate example of what the Gen Z stare looks like.
What you're finding is that a lot of young adults are very uncomfortable with basic face-to-face conversation. Now, we could get into the obvious factors, which would be social media. This is the first thing everyone's gonna call out, which is fair, it's valid, but I wanna look at this a little bit deeper. So we're just gonna cover that very briefly, and then we're gonna dive a little bit deeper. Yes, Gen Z grew up with texting over calling, DMs over dialogue, voice notes over live conversations. This is what they grew up with, as opposed to the rest of us where if you wanted to talk to somebody, you couldn't just send them a text message. No, you had to pick up that phone, you had to call. If you wanted to schedule an appointment, you couldn't just go online and schedule the appointment or go on some app and schedule the appointment. No, a lot of our day-to-day lives directly required you to talk to somebody.
I'm sorry, what do you mean Gen Z doesn't say hello when they pick up the phone? A recruiter just tweeted that in the process of doing multiple phone interviews, he's noticed that a lot of times members of Gen Z will pick up the phone and not say anything. And a lot of the people in his replies are defending that, which is insane to me. They're saying, well, what if it's a scam call? Not when it's a phone interview that you scheduled. And other people are like, oh, well, you made the phone call. You're coming into my space. It's on you to introduce yourself. Yeah. After I know that you picked up the goddamn phone. What are you talking about? I'm not asking you to fully initiate conversation with like a prepared monologue. I don't need you to recite a fucking poem. I need, hello, this is Josh. Ahoy hoy, just something. That's phones. That's how phones work. You called me. It should be on you to talk first. No, that's why it's called answering the phone. This has to be bait, right? Like everyone's just in on this weird prank. I have never experienced this. I don't call a lot of people. I certainly don't call a lot of young people, but I cannot even wrap my head around the idea of placing a phone call, hearing ringing, and then just hearing like, hello? Yes, this is Aiden. Like, oh, thank you. Cool. Fucking... Please tell me I'm not crazy.
It's more than just technology, because that's what everyone's going to lean on. Oh, it's because of the iPads. Oh, it's because of the cell phones. It's because of that. And while I do think it plays a role, there are other factors that also come into play with this. And I think a big part of this is we've created a trigger warning society.
Conversation around the Gen Z stare points to a larger problem in that Gen Z wants emotional bureaucracy. I love Gen Z, but the reaction to pointing this out from older generations has been straight up denial, where I've seen Gen Z say, quote, like, I think our generation is just done with fake people and we genuinely hate people and that we want to be left alone. That is straight up emotional bureaucracy, because now you have this disconnect between boundary setting and mental health awareness versus actual social resilience. And there's something really ironic about all of this, in that the generation that's often the most fluent about mental health language and rhetoric, they often use this fluency to create barriers to the very experiences that are actually essential to emotional resilience, right? The thing is that you should absolutely be kind and discerning and listen to your emotions and feelings, but there's a big difference between situations that are genuinely traumatizing versus things that are just difficult but are necessary for people's development. Because when you turn every single workplace interaction and interaction with the stranger or interpersonal conflict into emotional bureaucracy, you run the risk of creating learned helplessness that is disguised as self-advocacy. Instead of building the capacity to handle friction in interactions or difficult conversations or conflict, there's a tendency to create elaborate systems that prevent those situations from arising, which isn't great. And so now the absence of triggers becomes a goal rather than developing the ability to navigate triggering situations as they occur. And so when you spent years avoiding unscripted social moments or like just difficult situations, you literally do not know how to deal with it.
There's always some type of overcorrection whenever there's a problem. So we went from generations where people didn't talk about mental health, people didn't talk about what was bothering them. You know, you took it on the chin and then you went outside and you pretended like nothing was happening. You pretended like everything was fine. You just swept everything under the rug. The overcorrection then becomes, well, I don't want to experience anything traumatic ever. How does that end up looking? You get trigger warnings for everything. Don't like something, you should just avoid it. It's okay for you to have these crazy boundaries over every single interaction that you have in life. And what this has created is a generation where they will just avoid communication altogether to avoid being triggered. They will avoid communication altogether to avoid feeling awkward, to avoid feeling uncomfortable. If you're seeing every situation that involves you speaking to another human being as something that could potentially trigger you, then of course you're going to be a hermit. Of course you're not going to communicate. Of course you're going to avoid human interaction that isn't curated. That's why you're seeing the rise of echo chambers. Echo chambers, they've been around, but they're on steroids nowadays. And that's because people want to avoid any sort of conflict. They want confirmation bias after confirmation bias. So how does this connect to the whole Gen Z doesn't talk? If you talk to people, that runs the risk of you getting triggered. So I think that a lot of younger Gen Z, they avoid conversations so they can avoid their triggers, which is an overcorrection. Part of life is overcoming things. Part of life is dealing with what's uncomfortable, dealing with what is difficult and overcoming it. And you see that this is really putting the younger Gen Z at a complete disadvantage.
I need to dog on my own generation for a second here. Yesterday, I was at a career fair as a recruiter, and I noticed not only one, but several Gen Z attendees were there with their parent, walking through the career fair together. Not because the parent was also looking for employment. People's mommies were holding their hand and approaching recruiters with them to facilitate conversation. I think the Gen Z stare discourse that's been happening on this app lately all wraps up into the same theme of there is a very real, very noticeable lack of social aptitude among people my age. Maybe it's COVID, maybe it's technology, maybe it's a misstep in Gen X parenting, I don't know. The bottom line is this is a very real very serious problem that I think a lot of people are noticing, myself included.
You have hiring managers coming out in droves saying that young Gen Z are going to job interviews, going to job fairs with their parents, and expecting their parents to speak on their behalf. How can I expect you to do the job when you can't even come up and talk to me and tell me that you want the job? No, it's your mommy. Your mommy's coming up and telling me, hey, Billy wants a job. Billy's very talented. Billy can do this. Billy can do that. As opposed to Billy just showing the recruiter that they are capable, showing the recruiter that they want the job via just saying it out their own mouth. This coddled society is putting Gen Z, especially younger Gen Z, at a complete disadvantage because now a lot of them are unable to even do the basic things necessary to be an adult. Calling to make your doctor's appointment, going to the DMV and talking to the person to get your new ID. Just basic things that you should be able to do in a social setting. A lot of younger Gen Z are just not able to do it. So it's why when some of them actually do get hired for the job and you walk up to them in customer service and you ask them a simple question and they just stare at you like you're the crazy one, like you're the weirdo. It really highlights this social deficit that the younger Gen Z is having. And to be honest, I think that there is another level to this that's even deeper. Young Gen Z they've lost their passion.
I'm hit! Type shit. Hey, put your head down, little bro. Medic! Type shit. Yeah, no, they doing way too much trying to kill me, bro. That shit's weird. Lame as hell. Hey, get down, bro. Yeah, type shit. Yo, little bro, head down, bro. I can't move. They're really popping on us right now. Damn, boy, they really trying.
When you have a society that says nonchalant behavior is somehow cool, being passionate and being excited is cringe or doing too much, that expressiveness is tweaking, that caring deeply is embarrassing, then of course you are going to push forth a society that is detached and just perpetually bored. And what do detached and perpetually bored people do? Well, I'll tell you what they don't do. They don't talk. That's why you have all these younger Gen Z and they just have this nonchalant air about them. With that comes a lack of discussion, a lack of expression. You have this generation where they haven't practiced verbal communication, so they're unable to do it. And then also being expressive is seen as cringe, so they don't want to do it. Then no wonder we are where we are, where you have a whole generation that just cannot speak to one another, cannot speak to others. They'd rather just stay in their little echo chambers where they're all just regurgitating the same phrases to each other. I don't know how we can have a thriving society when this is the future, when this is what we have to look forward to. I've spoken to a lot of young Gen Zs and honestly Gen Alpha as well. They just seem so gray. Like it's almost like the movie The Giver, how in the beginning of the movie there's no color, it's just all bland and gray. That's honestly how it feels when I talk to young Gen Z and then also the older Gen Alpha. It's like they have no sense of inspiration about them, no sense of excitement or interest in anything. It's just like, yeah, just nothing, just blah, bland, no seasoning whatsoever, no curiosity, no opinions, no goals. And that's quite disturbing.
I hate that I've been conditioned to not care, that it's like so normalized to just not want to try, to not like have intentions, to not have wants, to be so nonchalant. I hate how like nonchalant we are as a society, and I hate that I've been trained that you should do things effortlessly. Things should just come easy to you. You should be able to just like, we reward people for being able to succeed without effort. And to put in effort and succeed is seen as like, wow, you really did that? I hate that so much, because you know what? I like trying. Trying and failing is fun. I learn more from that, and I hate that I've been taught to not want to learn. I hate that so much. I hate that because I can see that like aspect in me still there. I can see like, especially to grow up as a guy, it's kind of just like school is not only school lame, but trying is lame. And I remember that there were people like in my high school, I was part of them. They were making fun of some of the girls in my classes for getting A's on assignments and calling them like cheaters or tryhards because they studied and we didn't.
Communication is truly a muscle. If you have not practiced verbal communication, then it becomes extremely difficult as an adult to grow that skill. There's a connection between your brain and your mouth. And if you do not practice filtering what's going on in your brain through your pie hole, when you finally need to express yourself, you're going to be unable to do that. And to kind of bring it back to the whole technology conversation, Gen Z, they grew up with editing what they say before they post it. So they've mastered the art of curated communication. But here's the thing. In real time, you have to have unscripted conversations. And see, unscripted conversations, they require you to think quick. They require you to have emotional regulation. They require you to read body language. In other words, reading the room. And then they require you to respond without having that opportunity to edit what you have to say. And those are muscles, and if you don't use them, they will become weak and they will cease to exist.
The Gen Z stare, I see it as a topic, and I want to put my 2 cents in. I feel like there's a lot of confusion of what the Gen Z stare is because they keep showing customer service examples, but I have younger siblings and I have younger cousins that are Gen Z, and I've definitely gotten the stare before. The stare is them buffering, or they think too long to answer a question, okay? The conversation will go something like this. Do you want to go get ice cream? Do you want to go get ice cream? What are you trying to say? I just don't know. I just don't know if I want pastries or I want ice cream, and then I don't know if I have enough for it. Girl, then why didn't you just say that?
There should be a desire to communicate. There should be a desire to express oneself. But when you have nothing to express outside of copy and paste responses, then obviously this is what we're going to be left with. A whole generation and a half that cannot speak to one another, that cannot speak to you or I, that cannot truly advocate for oneself. Good communication skills, they build rapport. They're necessary for networking. They're necessary for leadership. And those who know how important communication skills are, they're going to be able to run laps around the populace. And unfortunately, a lot of bad actors, they recognize how important communication is. And they will use that against these younger Gen Z, these older Gen Alpha, and they will run game on them because they understand the importance of communication in an effort to manipulate others. I hope that we can get a grip on this because this whole nonchalant society is boring. I'm sorry. I typically don't like talking to too many younger Gen Z because they just seem so bored with everything. And I don't want to be bored. I want to be excited. I want to be intrigued. I want to be captivated by whatever it is that you're captivated by. But if you're not captivated by anything, then you're just bleh. Like there's nothing to you. But y'all, I am curious to hear you guys' thoughts down below. How do you feel about this conversation? Have you experienced the Gen Z stare? Do you have some Gen Z in your family and you try talking to them and they just kind of blah, 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 and then look at their phone? Or do you disagree with me where it's like, I am curious to hear you guys' thoughts down below. If you like the video, like the video. The more you interact with it, the more it gets pushed down to the algorithm. Also, hype the video if that function is available. If you're feeling a little extra generous, the link is in the description to buy your girl a coffee. Thank you guys so much, and I will see y'all with the next one. Deuces.